All right, welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, welcome everyone to this Q&A. A few questions came in that I want to deal with a little bit. One's come up more than once, but it's a common question that I think every so often needs to be dealt with. And that is, I mentioned, more than once. Well, actually, that's not true. Person says, I said that you don't need a rabbi to know the Noahide Laws. That I didn't say, right? Let's make that clear. I never said you don't need a rabbi, right? It's all common sense. What I did say was when you're going to get judged after 120 years, God's going to ask that you keep the Noahide Laws. Yeah, so you're going to say, oh, I didn't know about it. I didn't hear about it. So God's going to say, what? You didn't know you weren't allowed to kill, you're not allowed to steal, right? He said, like, what are you talking about? It's like, oh, you stole from the IRS. He says, oh, that's different. Uncle Sam, he takes too much money anyway. Or, you killed grandpa. I said, no, that wasn't murder. That's mercy. That's euthanasia, right? It's true that a lot of these laws will come from common sense. 100%. Now, even if you kept the laws because they made sense, right? They were common sense. You're not considered one of the righteous of the nations. You're not considered Chasidei Umo Olam. But you have a portion of the world to come. Yeah. How does the person keep the Noahide laws? Because God said to. Pass it down to Adam, pass it down to Noah, got down to Moses, etc. And that's how it works. So you get a portion of the world to come, by doing so. Now, if you only kept it because it made sense logically, so you still have a portion of the world to come, but you're not considered the righteous of the nations. Now, so first of all, I never said you don't need a rabbi. I think for sure, anyone in the process of conversion and anyone who's going to be a Noahide, anyone coming back to Judaism is about tshuva, Jew didn't grow up knowing anything or learning anything, they for sure need a rabbi, need a mentor. I don't think there's any question. I never said that. The laws are logical. That's true. That's 100% true. A lot of them people would have figured out on their own. But just like anything else, the person needs to be taught. So I said, yeah, you want to learn about the Noahide laws, go to noahidenations.com. Right? Gave classes, almost done, with all these, all these Noahide classes. Right? So then the person wants to claim, oh, it's contradiction. Right? You're saying that it's all common sense. Now I'm going to say you need a rabbi to teach you. You're right. Right. It is common sense. There are more than 7 laws. 7's an umbrella. Right. But there are a lot of things that are common sense. Right. That is true. That is true. But there are details. There are details that a non-Jew is never going to fathom. That are part of idolatry or murder, when these things apply, when they don't apply, in different things. But they are common sense. Many of them, not all of them, certainly are common sense. So that's not a contradiction, right? But my point was, if you want to learn them properly, then you should take a proper class on it. That was my point. And the class itself is free. Even better, right? So anyone want, go to noahidenations.com. Right, there's 60. I don't know. There are about 60 classes on the Noahide laws, and now we're just working through different philosophical things. We spoke last week. Spoke this week about the one part of the coming of the Messiah, how it looks for us, or what how it really is according to Judaism, and. We spoke about the soul, we spoke about man, the purpose of man, purpose of God, different things. So, the Noahide laws are not, they're not so simple. We'll say, oh, there's only 7 laws. Well, there are about 65 or 70 altogether, right? A lot of them, yeah, you would figure out. You probably would figure out on your own, but there are a lot of details. So you're going to say, well, if I don't learn with somebody, am I never going to learn them? You probably figure out most of them, right? But I still think it's pretty crucial to have someone take you through it than trying to figure it out on your own. And plus, there are a lot of things that I would say are moral imperatives that don't come under the Noahide laws, right? That would make a person to a mensch, right? That even if it doesn't apply, according to the Noahide laws, let's say like Lashon Hara, right? A person still shouldn't do it. Non-Jew obligated? No, definitely not obligated, right? That the point I made is, yeah, they make sense logically. It's common sense, right? But there's a lot to the laws. That's what I said. Not only that, I never said you don't need a rabbi. That for sure. That for sure never said. Right? So the question is, should I know them, all by myself? Some of them you could. I'm just saying there are details. There are a lot of details that you probably wouldn't figure out. That's why you need someone to take you through them, properly. They're complex, right? More complex than teaching a non-Jew for conversion, right? Why? Because a lot of these laws are scattered throughout the Talmud here and there. First of all, you got to find out where they are. They're in a few places. And then, but no one speaks about them, right? Does it apply like this? Does it apply like that? Like the other thing, you have to hunt around. It's not as easy. Definitely not as easy. And then the person said, well, some rabbis say you should only concentrate on Jews. Okay. You're right. There are a lot of Jews don't know anything about Judaism. So Judaism should focus on Jews. I agree. But I would also agree that these rabbis who say you should focus on Jews, what happens when a non-Jew comes? What happens when a non-Jew comes and the non-Jew doesn't want to convert, not interested in conversion for whatever reason? They don't have to convert. They want to learn. So what do? Throw them out? I have heard some people say one of the knocks against rabbis and communities is a non-Jew comes, wants to learn the Noahide laws, they push him off, they don't deal with him. So it could be that's true. Could be that's true in many cases. I'm not saying it's right. Right? And if they can't deal with him, they should pass him on to someone else who can. Right? They should be dealt with. I don't think you should just pass the buck. They definitely should be dealt with, but I do agree. There's a spiritual holocaust going on in Judaism. You got 12 and a half, 13 million Jews can't read Aleph Beis. They don't know Shema Yisrael. That's where the focus is going to be. That's where the outreach is going to be. Now, Chabad would disagree. I mean, that's what they do. That's why I shouldn't say they disagree. That's what they do. They're looking for Jews who don't know anything about Judaism. But at the same time, what are they doing? They are working with Noahides. Yeah, but what's their main focus? What's their main focus is Jews. That makes sense. But my point is that other rabbis will say you should concentrate on Jews. Okay. I don't disagree with that. But those same rabbis would have to agree that if a non-Jew comes to them, you don't push them off and say, I don't care, you want to be a Noahide, go find someone else. Go jump off the cliff. What do I care? That's wrong. That even they would agree. They would agree 100% is wrong. Right? Concentrating on Jews, yeah. That's our obligation. Non-Jews want to learn what they're obligated to do, not for conversion. Okay. They should be dealt with. Anyone who blows them off, I don't think it's a good idea. Makes a desecration of God's name. If you can't help them, have someone else help them. Someone else is in the know. Pass them on to somebody. But that causes other problems. People say we're second-class citizens. You don't want to deal with us. You push us off. Some do. I'm not denying that. I'm not saying it's right. Right? I am not saying it's right. But at the same time, if a non-Jew comes and says, I don't want to convert, I'm not interested in conversion, whatever the case is, and they want to learn, they want to know what they have to do. So even those rabbis agree, you got to deal with them. That's for sure. Everyone would agree. I think most people would agree also to focus on Jews. But if non-Jews come along, they should be taught. I don't think there's any question. Right? That I don't think there's any question. So, and the other question was, if a non-Jew wants to learn the Noahide laws, it's not a contradiction. They should know them by themselves. I mentioned many times, complicated, right? Even if they are logical, there are things that you wouldn't necessarily figure out. That I think is for sure. So that's something to keep in mind, right? That's just something to keep in mind. that's what I would say. That's what I would say on that. Now, the other question came in. Let me just 1 second here. Let's see. Someone asked, interesting. Somebody asked, I've heard that organizing a faith-based religion outside Judaism is forbidden. Yeah, it's called the new religion. Noahidism, or it's really not a word, Noahism as it's called. I recently learned that. It's called Noahism. According to the Rambam, 100% forbidden. I mean, not Noahism, but making up a new religion, right? So if Noahides do things they're not supposed to, yeah, if they overstep their boundary, which some do, which I definitely think some do, if they overstep their boundaries and want to do things like a Jew, even though they're not Jewish, that's a problem. That's a new religion. True. That 100% a new religion, just like Islam, just like Christianity, all these things that go against what the Torah wants, they're all new religions. Good. Also, that would be. Now, question is, does that mean a Noahide community is not allowed even more so? No. No, there are people, I've heard them say, and I disagree, and I would definitely disagree, but they'll say that there's no such thing as a Noahide community. Now, for now, there isn't. I mean, it might take a long time trying to establish one, right? But a Noahide community is under the guidance of a rabbi who can teach them. They have a place to come. They can pray if they want. They can have, classes. Again, they're not keeping Jewish law per se, right? They're not doing what Jews do, but they have a place to come, to congregate, social things, other religious things, meaning, classes, whatever. Very good. What's the problem? They're going to be under the guidance of rabbis. That's the whole point. They'll be within a Jewish community, right? Or they should be within striking distance, of a Jewish community. Yeah. So, again, I've heard this saying that there's no such thing. You're right. Right now, there's no such thing. Right now, there's no such thing. Right? I'm hoping sometime in the future there will be. Right? Now, what's the claim against it? The claim against it would be not necessarily it's a new religion, per se, because if they're keeping what they need to keep, that's not a problem. What's the problem? What's the problem some will claim? That they're going to get into it so much they want to convert that there's no point. So I don't know if that's true. But I would disagree with that. All right. If they're going to stay Noahides, they'll stay Noahides. They're Noahides for a reason, not just because they can't convert. There are plenty of Noahides out there that don't want to convert. They don't have to. Right? But if you're telling me, well, all these Noahides are going to convert and all the communities are going to go down. Why would that happen? I don't see it. I don't see why that would be the case. If they have their own communities, why would they convert? There are plenty of things that can go on in the community that can sustain them. Like I said, I could keep non-Jews busy for the next 250 years, teaching them things. That's not a problem. And if they want to pray, let them pray. Plenty of things they can say. I wouldn't tell them to pray from an art scroll prayer book, right? But there are plenty of things they can say. They can pray. They can pray as much as they want, as little as they want. Because they have a prayer service, why not? There's nothing wrong with it. That's not forbidden. Non-Jews can't pray. Why can't they pray? They're just saying it's going to look too much like Judaism. I don't know. I don't know why that would be. Right? But they need guidance. That's the whole point. It's complicated. I would agree. It's complex. You need someone who knows what they're doing to teach them and to have this thing going. That's true. That 100% is true. At the same time, I would say that, if they're learning, they're coming to pray, they're not keeping holidays. They're not doing what Jews do, right? Let's make clear. They're not making up a new religion. So what are they doing? They're tuning in to what is permissible. Now, if that's the case, someone may say, well, they may just jump on board and say, I want everything. I want conversion. I don't know. Why? If they're fulfilled and they're getting what they need spiritually, they're not going to go further. I don't think they're going to go further. But the claim is, no. The claim is it's a moot point. Why is it a moot point? Because you got to, let's say you start up, a few communities here and there. And people get really excited, say, wow, now I want to convert. I don't know, the whole community is going to fall apart because everyone's going to convert. I don't, they're Noahides for a reason. Some are never going to convert. They have no interest in converting. I would agree. There are some that stay Noahides because they have no choice. Their spouse doesn't want to convert, whatever the case is, or they can't move. That's a big problem, right? That's one of the biggest problems. So there could be a number of factors why they can't convert. But I don't see that anyone's got the opportunity to convert. They can do all these things. They're all going to convert. No one's going to stay in Noahide. I think that's far-fetched. 100%, I think that's far-fetched. Yeah, I think Noahide's going to stay Noahide. They're not all going to convert. So you need communities for them. Within Jewish communities. I wouldn't say to have a community out on their own. That's for sure. Right? Problem is, Noahides are scattered all over the place. It's a problem. One of the problems. Being a Noahide. Not to mention, there's no, they don't have holidays and other things. Right? They don't have so much ritual. I get it. But the problem is they're all scattered. They're not, they're not all in one place. Or you don't have a significant amount in one place. Someone in California is like one person within 300 miles, that they know of that's a Noahide. That's a problem. They're scattered. If you gather 40, 50 people together, within striking distance of an Orthodox synagogue, that can work. I think it's going to take a lot of work, but it could work. They'd have to, sustain a place. It doesn't have to be expensive, but they could be fulfilled. I don't think that's so far-fetched. It's never been done. I mean, there is one in Humble, Texas. There is one there. There's one, I think, in Calgary. I think there's one in South Africa, as well. I mean, I think it can be done, but it has to be under the right guidance, right? Someone learning the Noahide laws or learning about Judaism, you have to learn from someone who knows. The Noahide laws. Someone's going to say the Noahide laws are what? Noahide laws make sense logically. Okay. A lot of them you'd figure out, right? A number of them you probably figure out. Okay. But you're not going to know the details. You're not going to know how it applies necessarily. Someone, okay, no, I have to set up law courts. How do you do that? How are law courts set up? Can you go to secular court? Right? One of the things we discussed, in the Noahide laws. Right? The secular court, a distortion of Noahide law. What if you have no other choice? Or could you go to Jewish court? I don't think a Noahide would figure that out. Yeah, there are other things. There are other things also. There are details. So my whole point was you have to know the details. That, they're logical. That's true. And when God asked, how come we keep the Noahide laws? I never knew what they were. So God goes through the list. Don't steal, don't kill, don't commit, adultery, immorality, other things. God's not going to get a Noahide on things that are moral imperatives. 100%. They might be good, but he's not going to get them for that. Things that make sense. Okay. So now, if they make sense, that was my whole point. If they make sense, are you going to figure out the details on your own? No. Right? Doesn't mean a person's stupid. They don't have the requisite knowledge. And it's not, you can't go to Rabbi Dr. Google. There's not a lot of information. And unfortunately, there's a lot of bad information, that's out there. In the Noahide world. I think in the conversion world also. A lot of, a bunch of frauds out there and different things. So yeah, you sort of got to go, muddle through the, and get to who's good, who's not good and whatever. But my point was you have to know details. You have to know the details. So the basic things, yeah, maybe you'll say, out of the 65, you got most of them. Okay. Right? That might be true. But what about everything's in detail? Right? So you might understand certain things, but you still might transgress because you don't know the details. That's why I need someone proper to teach. Right? So again, I would say that's not a contradiction here. Whoops. That is not, there it is. That is not a contradiction, right? Because I said, yeah, the Noahide laws make sense. But if you really want to learn them properly, you got to go to noahidenations.com, right? Give classes on it, etc. You got to get the details. The basics probably a lot of people know. Right? That's probably true. A lot of people have probably a good requisite knowledge, right, of a lot of them. Some people not, but I'm saying, again, they're 65, 70. Could be a lot of people can't mention what they are. Maybe the top 10, whatever, but more than that, they might get stuck. But even so, I'm not even talking about that. Even someone who knew more, right? Even someone who, can name all of them, according to different rabbinic authorities. Okay. They're not going to know the details. That's the point. They're not going to know the details, right? Anyone coming out of Christianity got to relearn everything the Torah says because you learned it all wrong. No offense. You look at what the Torah says, the way you were taught it, or, the way they taught the Old Testament, whatever it is. It's eye-opening, totally eye-opening from a proper perspective, right? So if they're not going to know details about that, how would they know details about the Noahide Laws? Even though the Noahide Laws make sense. Yeah. So that's what I would say on that. It's not an issue. Though, it's not an issue of community. You're not setting up a new religion. You're not allowing them to do things they're not allowed to do. But that's not necessarily the claim. Claim I've heard people make is it's going to be a moot point because they're going to get so excited, this and that, they're going to want to convert, then you lose the whole community. I don't think that's true. Right? I definitely don't think that's true. People could argue. That's fine. They can argue and say, no, they believe it's true and it's a waste of time. It's not a waste of time. Non-Jews have to know what they have to do, period. How are they going to learn what to do? They have to go to someone who can teach them. Now, if they come to someone and they blow them off, that's wrong. That we said before. Right? Says, oh, you're proselytizing, you're looking for non-Jews. No, I tell people what I do. They're interested, fine. They're not interested, but I'm not running after people. That's not our job. Now, our job is not to run after non-Jews to keep the Noahide Laws. I mentioned that many times. Yeah, that's not our job. If they come to us and want to learn, very good. But how are they going to learn if we don't advertise it? Because if everyone has a brain, which everybody does, and they grow up as a Christian or as a Hindu, whatever, and they realize it doesn't make sense, it's all a bunch of bunk, they'll get to the truth. God will help them, right? The Gemara says, you want to go in the right direction, God will help you. You want to go in the wrong direction, God won't stop you. Yeah, so if they want the truth, they'll find it. They don't want the truth. They don't want the truth. I was just by someone earlier today that, that's why I'm a little bit late, and that is that, someone told me this book, which I really have no interest in reading, but whatever, a book about someone who grew up Orthodox. They grew up Orthodox, and I guess they're not Orthodox now, but they are trying to get non-Orthodox Jews excited about Judaism, excited about Torah mitzvahs. So I sort of laughed. So I said, how are you going to get people excited about Judaism if they themselves don't believe it's true? I mean, if you believe it's true, you keep it. If you don't believe it's true, right, then why would you keep it? So I said further, I said, if you look at what the Torah says, my Torah, my Bible does not say you can pick and choose. It doesn't say take the top 10, 15, and then everything else you can do whatever you want. It doesn't say that. They agreed. 100% they agreed. But a lot of it has to do with interpretation. I love that. A lot of it has to do with interpretation. The Kaufman's law is you listen to what the rabbis tell you. That's it. Whatever they tell you to do, left is right, right is left. You have to listen to them in every generation. Yeah. So which rabbis are telling you not to keep Torah mitzvahs, whichever ones you feel like? Which Orthodox rabbis are telling you that? They may, some may say, which we don't hold by, some will, turn the Torah into a pretzel and say, wow, I could go to, the Webster's fifth definition on the topic, and maybe we can rely on this in certain situations. And then they're going to say, no, we can rely on it, at the outset. That's not true. That they're turning the Torah into a pretzel. That you can't do. Right? So either you're within the boundaries of Torah mitzvahs or you're not. So as I said, conservative is 10 years behind reform. Modern Orthodox is 10 years behind conservative. Right now, modern Orthodox, some people are stronger, some people weaker, whatever it is. But at the same time, you're not allowed to pick and choose. You're not allowed to pick and choose. So my answer was, I think it's a very simple answer, is that people aren't interested in the truth. They don't care about the truth. Not my generation, not this generation. Nobody cares about the truth. They had a bar mitzvah, a bat mitzvah, that's it. That's where the Judaism ends. They want to learn more? No. Most people are not going to learn more. They're not interested. Okay. That's their choice, but they don't want to. It's not reinforced. It's not lived. And someone will say the language is a barrier. If you don't know the language, and you're sitting there praying, you don't know what's going on. Yeah, that's all true. That's all true. That's why we train our kids from a very young age, right? To read Hebrew, to understand the prayers, different things. But you have to live it. Not a 5-year option to renew. It's not if I feel like doing it, I don't feel like doing it. You got to keep it. If you live it and you keep it, you got at least a 95% chance of passing it down. But other people don't want to do that. They just want to do what they want to do. That's the bottom line. It's not about truth. People don't care about the truth. I said, how many proofs there are that God runs the world and God's in charge? And that the Hebrew Bible is true? Because I could be here till tomorrow giving different proofs. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. They want to know if I put ketchup or mustard or relish on my hot dog. That's what they want. They don't care about anything else. Right? Not about philosophy. So how are you going to get people to be excited about Judaism if they don't live it? If they don't believe it's true? If they know they're just allowed to pick and choose and do whatever they want? That's a recipe for disaster. And that's exactly what happens. In that world, that's exactly what happens. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. 60, 70% into marriage. Finished. You can't pass that down. It's impossible. You can't even pass down a nice feeling about Judaism because your kids will say, you like chocolate, I like vanilla. Try and convince someone who likes vanilla to eat chocolate. They don't like chocolate. I don't know why. They don't like chocolate. So how are you going to convince them? How in the world are you going to convince them? You won't be able to. So same thing. Oh, you like to do this? I like to do this. No. Did God speak on Mount Sinai? And if he did, what are my obligations? But they agreed, at least in theory, they agreed the Torah does not say you pick and choose, period. That's the problem. People do what they want. That's where it is. And it's not about truth. Nobody cares about truth today. They want to do what they want to do. They want to give in to their base desire. They don't want you to say anything's wrong. I know of a story. Someone reminded me of the story today. I know of a story. Someone intermarried. Jew marries a non-Jew on Shabbos. On Shabbos, yeah? So someone who observes Shabbos, okay, they're not Orthodox, right? They're conservative, but they observe Shabbos. They don't drive on Shabbos. To this day, they will not speak to that person because they didn't come to the wedding. Now, does that make sense? Why does that make sense? They made a wedding. First of all, it's to a non-Jew. That's first of all. Second of all, even if they would have gone to the wedding, even if that wasn't necessarily an issue for them, which I'm not saying it would be or not, doesn't matter. Point is, on Shabbos, they can't travel on Shabbos. So how do you make a wedding? How do you make a wedding on Shabbos and expect someone to observe Shabbos not that they're going to come? Oh, you don't think I'm so important? You stayed in my house for so many years and blah, 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 blah. That doesn't make any sense. You want to do what you want to do, and you want to rubber stamp it and say it's okay. It's not okay. It's not okay. You invite someone on Shabbos. They can't come. What do you want? What do you want them to do? They observe Shabbos. They can't travel. No, you're not going to get a non-Jew to take them. Forget it. They're not going to travel. They are not going to travel on Shabbos. Period. Not going to jump through hoops. Forget it. So for that, not only marry a non-Jew, but you marry them on Shabbos, and you expect them to come. In fact, if they didn't come, you don't speak to them. Come on. It's a little bit lame. It's a little bit lame. You can't have your cake and eat it. If you made it sometime after Shabbos and they could come, whatever, very good. You made it on Shabbos. What do you want? You made it on Shabbos. You make the bed and you lie in, right? So, I'll call them out, you fool. What do you want? What do you expect? You invite someone who can't travel on Shabbos. And now you're going to be upset for the last 20 years. 20 years or more because they didn't come to your wedding because you married a guy? Come on. It's a bit much. Even for me. Right? It's a bit much. I think it's an absolute chutzpah. Right? They observe Shabbos, you expect them to come? Come on. Right? So reminded me of that today. That's silly. I get it. They feel slighted. Okay, but you did to yourself. You make the bed you lie in. There are repercussions. Yeah. A person has a sibling, they intermarry. You don't say mazel tov. They can have, they can hate you. They could, but you can't say mazel tov. What are you gonna do? It's a travesty of a mockery of Hashem, right? So if that's true, what do you do? You can't do anything. Nothing to do. Yeah, and they say because you wouldn't do this, I hate you. Okay, that's their choice, but you can't do anything otherwise. So there's nothing you can do. You can't fake it. You can't say mazel tov, but in your heart you don't mean it. No, you don't know how to say it. You're doing everything to go against Judaism. So how can you say that's a good thing? Can't. Yeah. Somebody asks, all of Hashem's laws come from him. Okay, right? Passed down to Moses. Very good. Of who can and who can't do something, then why should the Noahide laws be Jewish laws? They all came from Hashem. Okay, very good. Right? There are laws from Hashem before Sinai. True. Very true. But let me ask the $1.5 million question, and that is, are Jews the same as non-Jews? No. Jews are not the same. They're not the same. Right? Why should Noahide laws be Jewish laws? Some things that are part of the Noahide laws also apply to Jews. Right? Not all the laws, the laws that apply to Noahide apply exactly the same to Jews. There's some things, there are a lot of things that don't. They have to be learned out. They have to be learned. Right? But again, non-Jews don't have the same status. There are different laws. So what if there are different categories? You're right. Don't murder is category for Jews also. Yeah. So the question, do all things, let's say when it comes to murder, whether it's premeditated or, self-defense, maybe say, for a non-Jew, even self-defense, they're allowed to kill them. Right? Figure out another way to stop them, but don't kill them. Right? Some of the categories are the same. That's true. Yeah, but the laws apply differently. The laws do not apply the same. That's the point. Right? We're not talking about totally different categories. Yeah. They don't take God's name in vain. That's one of the 10 Commandments. Also applies. Honoring parents also should apply. Right? Respecting them, honoring them. We learned that out from a non-Jew, by the way. The Gemara says you learn it out from a non-Jew. Interesting. Honoring parents for a Jew is learned from a non-Jew. So non-Jews keep that also. Okay. Now the question is, do they have the same obligations? Right? Honoring parents is a good example. Right? Now, for a Jew, parent walks in the door, walks in the room. At least once a day, you should stand up for them. Literally stand up, not just bow. Stand up to show respect. Because they gave birth to you. Now, someone's going to say, I hated my parents. It's okay, right? You might not have to honor them, if they were abusive or other things. You may not have to honor them. You have to treat them with respect. Even non-Jews have to treat parents with respect. Now, would a non-Jew have to stand up for a parent to honor them? No, they don't have that obligation. It's different. Yeah, respect. Everyone agrees. They should have respect for their parents. Yeah. Can they contradict the parent? Is that showing respect? Now, for a Jew, you're not allowed to contradict a parent. Right? This isn't so logical. Why? If a parent says something, you cannot say you're wrong. Right? That's disrespect. Now, you're allowed to say, well, I heard it was taught like this. Or I heard that the Torah says like this. Now, they're going to understand from your statement that what they said is wrong. Yeah. Even if they say, I don't believe in the Bible and I don't believe in this, okay, whatever it is. Right? But they are going to admit, they are going to understand clear as day that what you're telling them is that they're wrong. Right? That's what you're doing. That's essentially what you're doing. Now, is that logical for a non-Jew? right? Now, a non-Jew would say, the parents said something, and let's say, we'll make it easy. They're wrong. They made a mistake in something. Yeah. So they say, you're wrong. That's not true, and they prove them wrong. In a nice way. They're not obnoxious. Yeah. Do they have to say, no, I read this, I read that. Take a look at this, take a look at that. Do they have to go that far and say no? They could say, it's wrong because of this and that. And then they prove their point. For a Jew, you're not allowed to do that. That's disrespect. I don't know if that applies to a non-Jew. I don't think that applies to a non-Jew. Certainly standing up, I don't know, it's a good thing to do. But they're not obligated. Not obligated. So there are things that are definitely the same. The same laws. In many ways. Idolatry, good example. Shitu, believing in the Trinity. Yeah, there's a whole question by non-Jews if that's really idolatry or not. I don't want to go into it. It's a huge discussion. Major difference of opinion among rabbinic authorities if it is or not. Yeah, for a Jew, 100% nothing talk about forbidden. Absolutely forbidden. Yeah, so it could be the same category, but things apply differently to Jews as it do to non-Jews. It's not the same. Why isn't it the same? Because Jews are not the same as non-Jews. Things that apply more or less, whatever. Non-Jews don't have those same obligations, or they do. It depends what it is, right? But there are many things. That even within the same category that apply both to Jews and non-Jews, they don't apply the same. A non-Jew, someone mentioned this last week, right? Someone said, hey, for a non-Jew, you can kill them, they steal less than the value of, still less value of a pruta. Right? It's like a couple cents. For a Jew, you gotta warn them, it's gonna be worth, it's gonna be worth a value more than that. All we want to do is kill non-Jews. Yeah, stealing applies to Jews and non-Jews. The amount you steal to be liable is different. Jews has an obligation to warn. Torah tells me that non-Jews no obligation to warn. But remember, wherever there's a case of a death penalty, it's something that's so obvious you don't need to warn them. Adultery being one of them. Idolatry being another. Premeditated murder. You don't have to, you stop them dead in their tracks. You stop them. It's a different issue with Jews. Right? So even if a lot of these categories apply to both, they don't apply the same. They don't apply equally. Now, someone's going to take me to task and say, that's not fair. Life is not about what's fair or not, right? Let's make clear. Jews and non-Jews have different obligations. They have different obligations. If they have different obligations, laws will apply differently to both. They won't apply equally. They're different. They have a different soul makeup. They're different. So even if you have similar categories, certain things may apply to a non-Jew, that don't apply to a Jew, or vice versa. Or it's less, whatever it may be. But, again, shouldn't the Noahide laws be Jewish laws? They're different. The Noahide laws are different. They might come under similar categories, but the way that the mistake over here is it's the way they apply. The way they apply is very different. It's not the same. Nor should they be. Right? Because non-Jews have different obligations. So the Minchas Chinuch, or the Sefer Chinuch has a commentary on all the mitzvahs. Right? Every mitzvah. And it goes to the source of the mitzvah, where comes from different things, and then the Minchas Chinuch's a commentary on that about, how it applies, different things. And a lot of times they'll say this applies to non-Jews or it doesn't apply to non-Jews. And once I saw he wrote that I have this whole book on the laws of, the Noahides of, and we don't have it. That whole book lost. We don't have it. We don't have it. But this, again, you can have similar categories, they apply differently. Right? That, even if, Jews kept Shabbos before Torah was given. right? So the question is, what did Shabbos look like to them? Yeah. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob kept the Torah before it was given. Were they Noahide or were they Jews? Good question. Good question. Go to the book of Genesis, different stories, a whole lot of questions that they kept the entire Torah. Right? That's why Rachel dies when she comes into the land of Israel, because if he's held to a higher standard, then he's got to keep the Torah in the land of Israel while he can't be married to two sisters. Yeah, the whole thing with Tamar and Judah, Tamar and Yehuda, right? He's not allowed to be with his daughter-in-law. Some say he stayed with her, some say he didn't. But we understand kingship comes from that relationship. Yeah, so if they were Jews, how could he be with her? Yeah, whatever. There are a lot of questions. A lot of questions like that. If you're learning the Torah in this way, and understanding, if it applies, it doesn't apply, that's complex. Right? I'll give one other example. Yaakov marries Rachel, right? He marries Rachel, and what happens is Leah, he finds out it's Leah. Rachel passes him the signs that only he and Yaakov know. Yaakov gets swindled, and he wakes up in the morning, and he finds out it's Leah. Well, guess what? You're not allowed to marry someone if you don't know who it is. You can say it's a mistake. Total mistake. How's that marriage valid? According to Jewish law, that marriage should never be valid. It's a mistake. You don't want to marry Leah. You want to marry Rachel. Yeah. So then the whole thing, the Torah says, by love on us, if we don't do this in our place, take the younger one before the older one. If you want the younger one, they made a deal, working on the 7 years. But why is he allowed to be with Leah? That's the question. Not allowed to be with her, according to Jewish law. The mistake. You didn't have it when you marry somebody. You have intention to marry that person. You didn't have intention for Leah. The Rebbe answers in his commentary in Chumash and Chochmah Vadas. He said he understood the Jewish people were going to be built through Leah also. So he understood it wasn't a mistake. This is what was supposed to happen. That's one explanation. One possible explanation. Right? In other words, he understood he got swindled and never should have been. Totally never should have married Leah. But guess what? That's what God did. He got swindled. But he understood that was supposed to happen. Right? In other words, the Jewish people are going to be born through Leah as well. That's why it's not a mistake. But you have to ask the question. It's a legitimate question. How can he stay married to her? He didn't have intention for her. That's one of the things. The rabbi who does the wedding, one of the first blessings, second blessing he's going to make, he's going to say that they are betrothed together and they're forbidden to everybody else, which makes an open marriage forbidden. Yeah, because they're being betrothed to each other. That means to nobody else. So he has intention for her. So if he has intention for her and he finds out the next day it was really someone else, that doesn't work. According to Jewish law, it doesn't work at all. Right? So the question is, if you're going to say he kept the Torah before it was given, that doesn't make sense. How's he allowed to be married to her? So we gave an answer. I mean, probably other answers also. That's one answer. A woman asked if Noahide women are impure during the month cycle. Nope. Non-Jewish women do not have impurity. No spiritual cooties, as Kaufman would say. No spiritual cooties. Women are not impure, right? Non-Jews are not impure in general. If a Kohen came in contact with a non-Jewish body, does it make him impure? Nope. They don't have impurity. Doesn't mean they don't have their period or whatever, but that's not a level of impurity for us, right? That doesn't apply to non-Jews. Somebody asks, consequences of sins. There are a lot of consequences for sins. There are things that a person could do that they have to come back in this world, right? They would have to come back, be reincarnated, in this world. There are, a person speaks Lashon Hara, they get big complications because of that, causing someone damage. Yeah. Even if you don't think it affects them, it can take away their business. What else? I mean, there are a lot of things. A lot of things. A person sees something they're not supposed to see. Yeah, that affects the soul. that image stays in the person's soul. It doesn't go away, right? The impurity sticks to a person like glue. It doesn't go away. You got to fight like a dog, try and get rid of it, but it's there. So you see something, you hear something, you hear someone curse. You didn't ask them to curse. They curse, right? Someone's banging away, right hammer, left thumb, bam, right? They start cursing. You didn't ask for someone to start cursing, right? So now I heard someone curse. Is it your fault? It's not your fault. You happen to be there. Okay. But now the question is, are you affected? You're affected because you heard someone curse. A lot of people curse. Yeah. So, one thing you can do in such a situation is say, thank God I don't do that. I just heard today. I mean, it wasn't such curse words, but whatever. I'm not going to repeat them. But it's like in regular conversation. I think that's a bunch of bull, whatever, right? I'm not going to, you fill in the blank, on that. I don't like it's a young person. They speak like a truck driver. It's a much older person. They're 70s. You think anyone has any compulsion about swearing? Yeah, it doesn't register. What's the problem? We're adults. I can say what I want. They say, well, you also heard it. You're right. You know what I thought when I heard it? I thought it's sad. You're more like a non-Jew than a Jew. It's sad. I said, thank God I don't talk like that. Thank God I'm sensitive to that. But yeah, a person can be desensitized. Let's say someone else sins. Throw this out there. You see someone mowing their lawn on Shabbos. You don't see them being struck down or deadly diseases or whatever, right? So my Rebbe says you got to scream out. Now, not literally, but you should scream inside and say, I can't believe this person's mowing their lawn. Oh, they don't know anything. They never learned. You're right. But he said, if you don't at least scream inside, that means Shabbos doesn't mean anything to you. Or the repercussions. Person's weaker. Because when they see people do things that are totally forbidden, imagine you're eating your kosher sandwich, and next to a Jew is eating pork. It's disgusting. Yeah, okay, they're eating their thing, you're eating your thing. Yeah, that doesn't affect you. You should be screaming. You should be screaming at the top of your lungs. They can't do that. They'll hate Judaism more. But maybe you have to rebuke them. Probably you should. Okay. That 100% I would agree. But you got, these things have repercussions. Because if you see it and say, well, that's what they do. That's the norm for them. They never grew up with Torah mitzvahs. They wouldn't know any better, this and that. Okay. But that affects you. That just makes it lighter in your eyes. Right? It's like seeing someone desecrate Shabbos. The first thing that come out of your mouth is, what are you doing? That's what should come out of your mouth. What? You don't think Shabbos is so important? Desecrating Shabbos, this, that. A person should feel it. But if you don't feel it and you say that's the norm and that's what happens, and that's what, a lot of secular Jews do, we're going to say you can't change the world. Doesn't matter if you can't change the world. Right? But Rebbe says you have to feel it. You have to feel the pain. Feel God's pain that he's desecrating Shabbos. That this person's desecrating Shabbos. What are you going to say? They don't know any better, this and that. That's not an excuse. 100%, that's not an excuse. Don't give them a right to do what they're doing. But you got to feel the pain. And if you don't feel the pain, then Shabbos doesn't mean that much. So you want to know more about physical and spiritual consequences. Physical is easy in that sense. Let's say, a person stole from someone, caused them damage. Yeah, there are repercussions there. Definitely repercussions there. They spoke Lashon Hara. Yeah. No, Lashon Hara is not necessarily a good example. More committed, they were immoral. There are repercussions for that. Right? There are certain things a person does, even if they come back and ask for forgiveness, that relationship's never the same. It's usually never the same. Someone stole from someone, they said, listen, I don't really mean it. I was desperate, this and that. I really want to return the money, and I'll do what I can to return it. That relationship is probably never the same. Right? Most likely. Maybe it will be to a certain extent, but probably not. Right? Someone cheated on their spouse. That's very hard to say. Their relationship should be the same, right? Probably impossible, right? You'll never trust the person again, right? So, things like that are more, are more physical, repercussions. There are spiritual repercussions, based on physical things that a person does. A person sees things they shouldn't see. It has an effect on their soul. Yeah, a person, a Jew eats non-kosher. Yeah, it dulls the soul, makes them apathetic. That's why most Jews, they can't even hear words about Torah mitzvahs because they're so apathetic. They need they need like a nuclear bomb to go off over their head to wake them up, and that might not even wake them up. They're brain dead. Most of them are brain dead. So, those are spiritual repercussions based on a physical action. I mean, a lot of examples I could give. Somebody asks, are you liable when you hear someone you don't know talking Lashon Hara and you say nothing to them? Listen, you should rebuke them. You got an obligation, right? Even if they won't listen, right? Let's say you can't. You're in a situation you can't rebuke them, right? So then you're not allowed to believe what they say. If it's something that could possibly damage you, that's a different story. You can guard yourself against it, but you can't believe it 100%. Otherwise, even if someone spoke Lashon Hara, but you didn't necessarily, but if you believe it, then you're in trouble. You're going to say it's not my fault. You're right, it's not your fault, but the person said it. So if the person said it, right? If the person said it, and you believed it, you believed it. You're not allowed to believe it. Now, if it's something that could potentially cause you damage, that's a different issue. Then you can guard yourself against it. You guard, we say in Boston. You guard yourself against it. It doesn't mean you can believe it 100%. It's forbidden to believe 100%. If you're in the process of conversion, but secular Jews, I'm supposed to say something to them or leave it away. There's a problem. Some will say they're not going to listen anyway. Yeah. They're not going to listen anyway. So some will say they're not going to listen anyway. They're going to hate you more. They hate Judaism more. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's a very, very complicated issue. When you say something, how you say something, what your obligation is, putting stumbling blocks in front of people, it's a problem, right? I mentioned last week, someone was at the Super Bowl asked this question. I don't know what they're doing in the Super Bowl, but okay. They asked the question, another Jew, secular Jew, right? Not a religious Jew yet, we'll say. They're not religious yet. They order a tray of non-kosher hot dog. Yeah? Are you allowed to pass it to them? You're not allowed to pass it to them. You're putting a stumbling block in front of them. They said, but they could get it anyway. Okay. But they may hate you if you don't. So what? Yeah. Question is, if you say something you're not going to listen anyway, do you have an obligation to rebuke? So these are serious questions. These are serious, complicated questions. There is something, again, I'm just speaking in generalities, but it's a very complex thing. Sometimes you're obligated on the spot to say something. Right? Other times not. It depends on the situation. It depends what it is. It's complex. That's what I'm going to say. What are Noahides doing or wearing or saying that crosses the line? They pray from an Art Scroll prayer book. They say similar prayers that Jews say. They keep Rosh Hashanah. They pray from, they keep Rosh Hashanah. They fast on Yom Kippur. They celebrate the holiday of Shavuos, which doesn't apply to them at all because they didn't get the Torah. They're keeping kosher. Doesn't apply to them. Doesn't even affect them negatively. They're keeping Shabbos, to whatever extent. Now, it doesn't mean they can't necessarily tap in. Depends on what they do. Yeah, but they could be doing too much, which I've seen people do. Like someone told me, there's a Noahide that they know. They don't drive on Shabbos. They refrain from doing one of the 39 categories, or many of the 39 categories. That's forbidden. That's forbidden for non-Jews. If you're in the process of conversion, different issue. Keeping Shabbos. Learning Gemara. That's a big one. A lot of non-Jews want to learn Gemara. It doesn't apply to them. A lot of it doesn't apply to them. Yeah, a number of things. Also, goy that lives among them. Well, it doesn't matter if a non-Jew lives among Jews or not. It's irrelevant. Today it's irrelevant because there's no ger toshav. Ger toshav is someone who lives in Israel amongst the Jewish people that Jews have an obligation to sustain, and they basically keep the Noahide laws. Right? But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they live amongst Jews, they don't live amongst Jews. Right? They have an obligation to keep what they want. What they're obligated. What they're obligated to keep. You have let's say you have Noahide to wear jewelry or cross-dressing. Yeah, Torah prohibition for a Jew, no question. No question. Men can't wear women's clothes, women can't wear men's clothes, etc. What about that? That's straddling the line. That's probably not a good example. But I gave a few examples. Shabbos being one of them for sure. Torah being one. Learning things that they shouldn't learn, that don't apply to them. I think those are a few good examples. One second. Yeah, so person mentions that if you look at how out of control the world became, when humanity did whatever they wanted, well, that's what you see today. 100%, that's what you see today. Totally out of control. Now, it's crazy. Nobody knows what gender they're on. And trying to teach that at a young age, that's insanity. That's total insanity. You're right. When it goes out of control, the world will eat itself alive. That's what you have. That's what's happening today. No question. In many different ways. Many different ways. Yeah, someone asked how the fish survive the boiling water of the flood. Good question. That's a good question. It said that the fish were underneath. Fish were underneath the waters where it came up. It's one potential answer. Some say waters around the ark were not boiling, weren't boiling hot, even though other waters were. Right? Could be the fish hung around there. Could be that the water's only boiling on the surface, not the depths. That potentially. There's a medrash that says the Atlantic Ocean not boil and all the fish went there. Medrash says such a thing. But if you're going to explain freshwater fish, that might be an issue. Some say that the boiling waters occurred when it was covering previously dry land. That the water predated the flood, i.e., various bodies of water which contained sea life were not subjected to boiling temperatures. Keeping the ocean, sea life was unaffected because they hadn't been corrupted. A few different answers. To that. Let me see, any other questions? Someone who wants to convert, pray for an Art Scroll prayer book. Yes. That's not a problem. If they're in the process of conversion. Yeah, if they're just doing it as a Noahide, then that's a problem. That's definitely a problem. Will Ger Toshav ever apply again? No. Nope. So unless there's a Jubilee year, right? Unless there's a Jubilee year, which we're not going to have for different reasons, different technical reasons. So you need a Jubilee year for Ger Toshav to apply, and that's not going to happen. Right? Again, for technical reasons, it's not going to happen. So that would be an issue. Someone asked, could it be that the reason the goy is held more accountable was because of what they did before the flood? They're more accountable very simply because the laws are universal. Not quite sure what they did before or after the flood. Sorry, before the flood. Yeah, they corrupted themselves, they corrupted species. They did a lot, they did a lot of terrible things. Yeah, but what was the flood sealed by? What was the final thing that destroyed mankind? Stealing. Right? The commentaries ask, what do you mean? There's idolatry, murder, immorality, all these things going on at once. But when people steal, then society can't function. Right? If you have most of the society, doing that, society won't sustain itself. And since they won't sustain themselves, since they can't sustain themselves, God said, okay, that was the final seal. Someone asks, why isn't there a record of the Noahide laws outside the Talmud in history? Because they weren't applicable. They were not applicable, right? They've only really, the rabbi spoke about them, right? The Talmud speaks about it. And pretty much no other source, there's no other source that basically speaks about it. For very simple reason, like why isn't there no code of Jewish law? Why didn't Shulchan Aruch speak about it? Why didn't other halachic sources speak about it? Who speaks about it the most? The Rambam. Why didn't anyone else speak about it? Because a lot of these laws, you don't have people coming to be Noahides. Either they came to convert. That was it. So now you have a huge movement. That's the last 70, 80 years, right? It's never been applicable. You never had people. I mean, the laws are on the books. That's true, but it's never been applicable. It's totally never been applicable. Since then. For that. So that's definitely one of the reasons. I mean, there are other reasons. Other reasons also. 1 second. See if I find it here. 1 second. Of course, every time you look for something, you can't find it. See if I get lucky. Oh, here we go. Let's see one thing here. Yeah, so at least the 4th century of the Common Era, the idea of a Noahide sort of, wasn't around, very much. It wasn't known as an independent religious identity. It was like a fence of an academic category or classification. So Torah law, its renewal came about the late 19th century. 1 second. Also, the fact that most of the mainstream Torah observant world was unaware as well. Interesting enough. There's a total lack of awareness, but that's changed. That is definitely that's definitely changed. Over time. But it was never I wouldn't say in vogue, per se, but it was never really an issue, I guess, for lack of a better term. Right? It was never really an issue way back. So that doesn't mean the laws weren't on the book, but no one really delved into them. It wasn't really practical. Right? It wasn't really practical. So those are some of the reasons. Is the repentance on Rosh Hashanah good for Noahides? Rosh Hashanah is not about repentance. Right? Let's make clear. Yom Kippur is about repentance, not Rosh Hashanah. So Rosh Hashanah is about making God king. That's the whole purpose of Rosh Hashanah, is making God king. Yeah, so if you want to make God king, very good. That has nothing to do with repentance. And if you look at a Rosh Hashanah prayer book, you go through the whole prayer book, you will not see anything that's written about repentance. It's about understanding the world's being judged, right? That's a good thing. Understanding the world's being judged and have fear and this and that, very good. Be introspective, very good, right? Very good. But at the same time, that's definitely true. That's definitely true. But there's no such thing as repentance on Noah for Rosh Hashanah. They don't want to tell me I'm Kippur, okay, but not Rosh Hashanah. No, certainly not Rosh Hashanah. Yeah, 1 second. Jubilee year stopped. God Hashanah Menashe taken captive. Again, it's a technical issue. It's a technical issue why we don't do it. Why we don't do it today. First, for a long time, you needed the majority of Jews to live in the land of Israel for that to happen. It's only in the last number of years you have that. You have that the land of Israel is the biggest Jewish community in the world. So, but there are other issues. That was one of the issues that for a long time you didn't have. But there are other issues as well. What's considered the process is you can pray from a sinner. Person wants to convert, right? If they want to convert, they feel this is their calling, so doesn't mean they have to be accepted by a rabbinical court. That could take months. To be accepted by a rabbinical court. You're going to say, what, I can't pray before that? If a person's serious about conversion, and they're not just wishy-washy, they thought about it, they're making the effort, that's what they want to do, they're changing their life, then they should be allowed to pray. If they're not fully committed, then yeah, I wouldn't pray from a prayer book. There are Noahide prayer books out there. I wouldn't pray from a Jewish prayer book, right? A person has to be committed. That doesn't mean they have to be accepted necessarily by a rabbinical court. Some may say they have to be accepted by a rabbinical court. I don't know if that's true. That means they're not accepted by a rabbinical court, they can't start keeping kosher. They can't start keeping Shabbos to a certain extent or whatever. I don't think so. Not everyone goes to the rabbinical court first anyway. Right? And it may take time before they're accepted. So I would say it's about commitment. Person has to think, is this where my life is going? Is this what I'm going to do? Is this how I'm going to live out the rest of my life? It's a serious thing. 100% a serious thing. Person cannot be wishy-washy. And I'd say straight out, if you're wishy-washy, don't do anything until you know what you're going to do, right? Until you make that commitment, right? You want to stay in Noahide, that's fine. Right? We don't have any problem with that, but if a person says, yeah, this is what I'm going to do, and 100% I'm going to be a Jew, then why can't they pray? You can't be, a person can't be flippant. They can't keep jumping back and forth. Now I'm going to be Noahide. No, I'm going to be Jew. No. Commit one way or another. The person says, this is what I'm going to do. This is the path I'm going on. Then they should pray for a prayer book. Yeah. If they're not sure, then they shouldn't. Like any of the mitzvahs that don't necessarily apply to them. They shouldn't do it until they're committed. And, until this is the way they're going to go. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to do everything at once, even if you are committed. Right? In other words, even if you are committed, say, yeah, I'm going to be an Orthodox Jew, this is what I'm going to do. There's a lot, there's a lot to do. You're not going to do everything at once. It's impossible. Take a little bit here, a little bit there, building blocks, but there has to be commitment. If there's no commitment and you wishy-washy, then yeah, I'd say no. Then I would say no. When do the set parshas get made? Oh, when do the set parshas get made? Good question. Could be about 6th century, I think. Let me see. When was it done? 1 second. It's interesting. It was done by non-Jews. Interesting enough, the division of scripture into chapters was done by non-Jews about the 13th century. They did it to make it easier to study, the exact sources. Interesting. Now the Gemara says that Moses himself established the custom to publicly read the Torah scroll every Shabbos. Even didn't mean necessarily a yearly cycle. Some said it was a cycle every 3 years. Finish the Torah, and finish it on Simchas Torah, all right, the last day of Sukkot, or a really separate holiday, not part of Sukkot, really separate from Sukkot. And the Torah then was divided, so that was done in the time of the Talmud, and the Torah was divided into 54 sections, 54 parshiot for completion of the yearly cycle, with the reading of one parsha each week, and sometimes you can have more than one parsha because, if you don't have a leap year, then some parshas are going to double up in order to finish within a year. So yeah, it's interesting that the chapters themselves were divided up by non-Jews. The parshas themselves were developed by Moses to read every Shabbos and finish it. Again, there's a discussion whether every 3 years or every year. We hold it's done every year, and then it was split up into 54 parshas, and some parshas are going to be said are going to be read together, right? Some are going to be doubled up, otherwise you wouldn't finish. Let me see. Any other questions? Every human has a spark of God in him. Yeah, can we say we are Godwin? Everybody is. Non-Jews also. Everyone's created in the image of God. There's the question what you do with that. 100% there's the question what you do with it. So everyone's got that spark, right? Everyone's got that spark of godliness within him, right? That is true. That 100% is true. The question is what you do with it. Non-Jews have less to do in the world. Jews have a lot more to do because we chose God, God chose us. But yeah, that's definitely true. That is, it's just non-Jews aren't chosen, right? But they can, we talk about the Pintele Yid, the spark of a Jew, right? That comes from that deep resource of the soul, right? A non-Jew wants to convert, they have that spark. They have that spark, they're on Mount Sinai, they got messed up through intermarriage and assimilation. Yeah, but a non-Jew in general, they're creating God's image. Everyone's creating God's image, right? When God said, make man in our image, speaking to the angels, right? But who's he talking about? Just Jews? He's talking about everybody, right? He's talking to all mankind, right? So, a non-Jew follows the Noahide Laws, right? Then they're doing what God wants for them. They want to convert, okay. They don't want to convert, also okay, right? But they have godliness within them also. If they use it for the right thing, if not, okay. But if they use it for the right thing, listen, if they don't use it for the right thing, they're still creating God's image. They just abuse it, right? They're just not doing what they need to do. But if they, they go the right path, then yeah, then that would be true. That would be true. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, the other questions. I'm going to stop here. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, usually 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman. We'll be on Orthodox Conversion to Judaism. You can take a look at my YouTube channel. It'll be on Orthodox Conversion to Judaism. A lot of videos there on ethics of our fathers, Torah portion of the week, Q&As, controversial issues. Anyone has any questions, you can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Wish everyone a good beginning of the